Good day everyone, so we'll be discussing the problems with pre-release analysis. Of course, here are just a summary of the talking points, so please don't rush to the comment section and put down a bunch of points without watching the video. It is generally irritating if you do so. Of course, as always, the background footage is purely for entertainment. If you want F2P or whatever runs, they are on the channel, so please do support them. Right, so to kick it off, yes, unfortunately, first impressions are lasting impressions in Genshin Impact. One of the telling tales of this is the fact that the majority of banner sales, if you look at Genshin Impact, are distributed to take place towards the first few 3 or 4 days of a new character being released, and this definitely tells you that the people that want a character or that are supposedly going to wish for a character will generally only do so within the first few days of that character being released. And we know this because Hoya themselves have given certain content creators access to a special media server in which they can test out characters, record footage, so that the day that the character goes live, they can put out their videos on YouTube immediately, and then people can sort of get some impressions. And unfortunately, those videos that are released right at the beginning are not always videos that have done proper testing. We know that very often when people do look at a character, the first sentiments or whatever sort of impressions that a lot of these popular content creators convey will have a very strict effect on how people sort of perceive characters. A good example of this would be a character like Cookie Shinobu, who came out, and a lot of people are like, what's the point of this character? HP, EM scaler? No one really understood it, and yet there were very few people, including myself, that on day one when Cookie was released told, like most people, hey listen, you're supposed to use her in a reaction based team comp. And very few content creators went back. There was one or two that said, hey, maybe we all are playing Cookie wrong and we should be using her in this way instead. And unfortunately, if you do look at the first impressions video that these content creators put out, and of course their subsequent videos, you'll notice that unfortunately they've got less views on the sort of correction that they made. And this is the big problem with pre-release analysis. The methodologies that goes into creating those first impressions are themselves flawed. So this leads me into my second talking point. A lot of pre-release analysis is done on the basis of using the new character in a situation where all the characters would have been used. So for instance, a couple of examples might be replacing Nahida with in team comps where Videndra MC was sort of prevalent, replacing Yelan into team comps where Xingshu was sort of present. These are very tempting things for people to do, and in some cases this can work and this can lead to favorable impressions and also invariably some comparisons between the different characters, but they can also lead to situations where you might say, oh yeah, you know, Nahida is so sort of dendro happy in terms of her application that she kind of messes up my electro swirl and whatever, and therefore, you know, it's kind of not that good. But this is the problem. If you have a new character with a new kit, you're supposed to be trying different variations. You're supposed to say, look, this formula of pressing this button at this point so that I can overlap these cooldowns and these buffs and debuffs is not something that will necessarily work. So it's a good idea to try a different order in terms of playing things. And very often, just something as simple as this, I know it sounds obvious, can actually lead a lot of people to realize that the false impressions that they had for a character were precisely that. They were completely wrong about how to utilize or use the character. And in some cases they can also lead to some false equivalences. So for instance, a lot of people have said, well, you know, C0 Yelan is just slightly worse than a C6 Xingshu, but yet this ignores all of the AoE mobility and other aspects that Yelan can offer in a different variety of teams, and yet the focus is just, well, I'm going to replace her in the teams that sort of was traditionally Xingshu's space, and on that basis of comparison I'm going to fire up GC Simulator, I'm going to do my theory crafting, and now, yeah, by the way, she's just more or less like the same or just slightly worse. And it's just like when people make these really bad comparisons, they can very easily lose out the broader scope or the sort of broader utility of a character because they've narrowed their focus down way too much. And this is something that definitely creeps into pre-release analysis. We've seen it a ton of times. Of course, this leads me now onto my third point, the fact that people do not read character kits in depth. So a lot of people, yes, will read what the Elemental Burst and Q will do, but unfortunately there's very often a lack of appreciation for how this passive can interact with the rest of the team, or in some cases even why this passive was created. So let's look at a couple of quick examples. Obviously when Kokomi was released, everyone was just sort of hyper focused on the fact that, oh, she's got no crit rate, but they did not truly understand what the passive enabled. It enabled her to be this role compressing unit, and this is the big thing as to why a lot of people had an incredible amount of kind of unfair hate towards the character, and now Kokomi is obviously in a good spot. And of course another character was Yaemiko, where a lot of people did not understand her elemental mastery passive, and yet very few people, including myself at the time, pointed out to a lot of people that this unit's supposed to be used in reaction-based team comps. The same with Cookie Shinobu, and well, lo and behold, what do you have today? Cookie Hyperbloom, Yaemiko and Spread on aggravate teams. This is exactly what we sort of pointed out way back when, on the first day of those characters being released, because we understood that if you read their character kits properly and understand sort of the greater context in which you can use them, that there's obviously something more going on here. There's something much more at play. And it's no coincidence that if you look at my Sumeru video, the very first one when the Sumeru patch came out was to say Yaemiko's back, and this is precisely what we predicted. And this is okay. It's okay for Huyo to release characters that have parts of their kits where it is obvious that these characters will have their full potential being utilized later on. And it's also fair for people in their first impressions videos to sort of say, listen, there's an aspect of this character's kit that does not make sense in the current context of the game, so our best advice would be just hold on perhaps until the rerun, and hopefully by the time the rerun comes we will have like a better appreciation for what this character can do. And if that's the opinion that people sort of give, then yeah, I'll be very happy to take it. But a lot of people unfairly focused on Yaemiko, on all sorts of irrelevant nonsense like her E ability not having iframes and all these sorts of things. And for those of you that saw my sort of Yaemiko impressions, it's very clear these people don't know how to play the character at the highest level. But yes, this is the problem. You reach these false conclusions so easily just because you don't really read kits and understand holistically how they could be used in the fuller context of the game and the game mechanics. And then finally, this is perhaps like a bit more of a controversial point, but I do feel like a lot of people do pre-release analysis with the intention of trying to underplay sort of the hype towards new characters. In my opinion, it's a silly thing to do to try and guard free-to-play primo gems or to prevent people from spending and so on. I mean, that is, you are free to curate the game at your own pace. A lot of people will get characters if they truly like the character, and this game in and of itself does not have a leaderboard. It does not have enough justification for you to go out and say, I'm defending free-to-play players' sort of primo gems, because what are you defending? You're defending the ability for them not to spend money so that they can clear this power abyss faster. It does seem a bit hollow when it comes to the intentions and so on. So for me, the idea that we downplay characters and we look for flaws and we exaggerate flaws is also silly. And of course, Nilo is a prime example of this, where a lot of people came out and said, don't waste your primo gems because she can only be used in this sort of team comp, and yet she can find quite a lot of success in not just the team comp that she was specifically designed for. You can use her successfully in Hyper Blooms, you can use her successfully in Freeze and sort of other team compositions. It's not that the character is just unusable, it's not a binary, oh, she's either good in this niche or you don't sort of pick her. And I think this is the dishonesty that a lot of people sort of tout, and I know this is sort of always once again touted from the perspective of, yeah, but an existing unit would have been better in this team comp. Once again, that does not matter. What matters is if you are someone that loves a certain character and you want to find value, then it is my job as a content creator to paint the landscape of possibilities of a character, present the character's kit realistically to you, and sort of show you in all the situations in which you can realistically use the character and have a lot of fun. That is a content creator's job. Of course, pre-release analysis will not cover everything. It will not uncover all of the synergies and all of the things, and people will go back and say, oh yeah, this character was worse than we thought or better than we thought. We get those caveats, but unfortunately in the current state of Genshin Impact, pre-release or first impressions are very, very powerful, and I think there should be a tighter way or a much more methodical way in which content creators go about actually assessing characters. And this is just sort of the points that I wanted to make in this video. Alright everyone, thanks for watching, keep well, cheers.